I know everyone's probably sick and tired of me talking about OLJ. The OLJ is the reason why I'm here. OLJ is the reason why I formed this company. And OLJ is the reason why governance and systematic control is required. Remember, we're not an agency, not even close. We're a bunch of tech nerds that is designing a proven web application that already exists in the field. You guys know it as Upwork. You guys know it as Fiverr. You know it as systems that don't belong to you. Upwork belongs to Santa Clara, California. It belongs to the United States. A one a $1.4 billion digital ecosystem. Bet you didn't know that. Then you have Fiverr, which is owned by Israel. $411 million system owned by Israel. And then you have freelancer.com, owned by Australia, a $10 million digital ecosystem. Okay, I just said three ecosystems that you guys know of that Filipinos use every day. Some like it, some don't. Some have started careers on it. Some people, but most of the reason why people don't like it is because of the fees. Why is there fees? Well, because the digital ecosystem has to make money because there are people involved in that system. It's a good system. It's a healthy system. You know why it's a healthy system? Because it's worth that much. So that means that company is doing well and it's boosting the economy of where it's located. So Israel's doing pretty well, America's doing pretty well, and so is Australia. But what is the asset in there that produces the output? Filipinos, predominantly. And you guys get pulled 20%, pay for connects, and you're wondering why. Because the system was purposely designed that way by a human being, and it is your choice to use it. We are doing the same exact thing, but backing it with Philippine labor code and law. All the rules in every platform is self-authored and designed purposely for profit so that the platform makes money. Makes sense. They don't care about the agents. They don't care about the VAs. They do what they have to do, and they construct that business model so that they thrive as a business. You got to respect that. Okay. I'm sure clients are complaining just as much as VAs because the platform was designed to create the communication, facilitate a business model where both sides win. The VA makes money, the client gets talent, boom. But the platform must be paid. Now, I don't agree with 20%. I don't agree with Connects, but it's a system because it has to make money. And that money has to feed the system for it to survive. Okay. Hence the fact that we're also making a system for the Philippines made with our rules. Therefore, Filipinos and clients will follow those rules, and they will follow those rules as a choice. You design applications, you design systems that are favorable first for the people that are going to use it. That's what's very different for us. We're designing a system that is favorable, that's also going to fix a fucking problem. And what is the problem? The exploitation, the ghosting. Okay? You guys have never heard of virtual escrow holding systems, but yet you've actually used it before on the receiving end. Fiverr operates like that. I believe Upwork too. So that technology exists, but you've never seen it work for you. So when I say my system or our system's going to work, it's going to fucking work because it's already proven with previous models. So all these people telling me you haven't shown nothing yet, you're just all talk. How about you do what you're good at, Google what I'm talking about, and try to find an error in what I'm saying? Because I wouldn't waste my time talking all this shit knowing about a product that I don't think is going to work. Everything we do here is mathematical. Everything we do here is backed by credible data. We're not emotional. We're not here to be your friend. We're here to expose and show you the truth, and we're going to show you what's going to fucking work. At the same time, if y'all are so upset that the company I built and the team that I established is going to be wealthy, that's your problem. But no one's stopping you from making your own system. You have a ton of full stack developers in the Philippines. I don't understand why a single full stack developer hasn't done this yet. Now, my connections in Hong Kong told me, well, Filipinos were never told that they could do that. Who? Who's stopping you from making your own systems? For once, let's own our system. Let's make our rules. Let's use the certain laws that work in our favor. And that's what I'm putting in the code. Okay. I'm going to get off my high horse now and start this briefing. All right. So, welcome everyone. Adrian, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. This is all freestyle. Okay. So, everybody, welcome. I'm glad you're here because today we're going to have a real conversation. All right. Not drama, not gossip, but a structured breakdown of something that affects hundreds and thousands of Filipino workers every single day. Now, the title of this episode is OnlineJobs.ph Exposed. All right. Not making anything up here. I'm going to show you exactly how this model is on the client side. Don't forget where I'm at. I'm in Los Angeles. I look at this as a client, not as a VA. All right. So before anyone jumps to conclusions, this isn't a hit piece. This is an examination. I'm going to say it one more time. This isn't a hit piece. This is an examination. And honestly, an honest look at how the virtual outsourcing world got built. Who built it? Who built it? It was built by one man, actually, and why it feels the way it is right now. So if you're a Filipino VA, you're a rep. I'm just tired of calling y'all assistants. You're not a fucking assistant. You're a freelancer, entrepreneur, someone who's been working online for years, or even someone just thinking about getting into this space. I need you to stay with me for the next 30 minutes. Hopefully, it's not going to be 30 minutes because what I'm going to lay out for you is the cause and effect behind the chaos that you're experiencing. So remember, I sit on the client side. I'm in America. All right. I'm in America. I'm in Los Angeles, California. All right. One of the major cities in the United States. I see how this market talks about Filipino workers, talks about my people. Okay. When they're not in the room. And most of you back home will never get to access those conversations. Okay. Not because you're not capable, not because the system was designed to keep you out of them. So today I'm going to walk you through 5 key areas why everything feels so chaotic right now. How OnlineJobs.ph stepped into a vacuum and shaped the rules, how freelancing bled into legitimate VA and BPO work and contaminated it, why Filipino ownership of the system matters more than anything else, and finally, what comes next, what the solution actually looks like. This isn't about attacking anyone. I'm not being a crab. I'm not being toxic. Okay. I'm actually doing very well. I don't have to do this shit. You know that, right? I don't have to do this, but I want to because I know I can solve this fucking problem. It's about exposing a structure or the lack of one that's been quietly controlling Filipino careers for over a decade or more. So I'm gonna get into it, okay? So let's start with the obvious questions. Why does everything feel so chaotic right now in the virtual outsourcing world? Look at the freelance space today. Really look at it. What do you see? Random Facebook job posts with no verification, Telegram groups where someone posts looking for a VA, $3 an hour, must start tomorrow, no contracts, no standards, no clear authority you can appeal to when something goes wrong. So clients think they're trying a VA, workers think they're trying freelancing, but nobody, and I mean nobody, is operating inside a real system. There's no governing body. There's no professional standard that everyone agrees to follow. There's no certification that actually means something. There's no recourse when you get ghosted after 2 weeks of work. And here's what I need you to understand. This chaos is not an accident. It's not. Chaos is what happens when there is no structure and when no one from the fucking Philippines is allowed to sit at the top to enforce one. Think about any other professional industry. Doctors have boards, lawyers have bar associations, even construction workers have unions and safety standards. But virtual assistants, freelancers working online, nothing, zero structure, zero. I hope everyone knows that. Pretty obvious. The result is what you see every day. Workers underbidding each other in a race to the bottom, clients with unrealistic expectations because no one ever told them what professional standards look like, and a general sense that this whole industry is just a wild west where anything goes. That's not freedom. That's not freedom, guys. That's abandonment. And it was designed that way. It was designed that way, whether intentionally or not, because structure would require someone to take responsibility, and so far, no one has. Now, let me dig deeper into what this chaos actually looks like on the ground, because I think sometimes we normalize things that shouldn't be normal. Think about what happens when a Filipino worker gets hired through a random Facebook post. There's no contract. If there is one, it's something the client copied from Google or ChatGPT that has no, actually, using ChatGPT would be beneficial because it's going to give you the right shit, that has no legal standing in the Philippines. There's no clear scope of work. There's no agreed upon process for disputes. The worker starts, does their best, and then one day the client just whoosh, disappears. Sounds familiar, right? Stops responding, stops paying, and the worker has absolutely nowhere to go. No platform to file a complaint with, no governing body to escalate to, no professional association that will advocate on their behalf. They just absorb the loss and move on to the next gig. In the streets, we call that just take it in the ass. Hoping it will be different this time. And on the client side, it's chaos too. They don't know what a fair rate is. They don't know what qualifications to look for. They don't know how to manage someone remotely. So the cycle through worker after worker convinced that Filipino VAs are unreliable, when the truth is they never had a system in place to make the relationship work. This is what I mean when I say chaos isn't an accident. It's the neutral result of an industry they grew up without any institutional backbone. No Philippine regulator stepped in early enough. No Filipino-led organization said, here are the rules. And into that vacuum, that complete absence of structure, something else stepped in. Something that looked like a solution, but actually made the problem permanent. And that's what we're going to talk about next. Into that vacuum, the complete absence of Filipino-led structure platform stepped in. And the biggest name that everybody knows, the one that essentially defines this entire market for over a decade, is OnlineJobs.ph. Now, I want to be clear about something, what OnlineJobs.ph is and how it came to be. Listen, the platform was not built by Filipino institution. I think we all know that by now. It was not created by a Philippine government agency or a Filipino professional body with doctrine, policy, or worker representation. It was self-authored by one American fucking white guy, right? John Jonas, who decided how this market would work and how Filipino workers would be presented to foreign clients. John Jonas saw an opportunity. He recognized that there were millions of talented English-speaking Filipinos who could do remote work. And there were thousands of small business owners in America, Australia, Europe, who needed affordable help, not cheap help. So he built a marketplace to connect them. And on the surface, that sounds great. That sounds like a win-win. But here's what you need to understand. When one person, one foreign individual gets to design the entire system, they design it for their audience. They design it for the buyer. The platform was built to make it as easy as possible for clients to find, hire, and yes, replace Filipino workers. The entire user experience, the pricing structure, the way profiles are displayed, all of it was optimized for the employer's convenience. And because there was nothing else in place, no competing Filipino-led platform, no government regulation, no professional standard, OnlineJobs.ph didn't just fill the vacuum, it became the vacuum. It became the de facto standard for how Filipino virtual workers are found and managed. And that's a problem we need to examine. Now let's talk about the business model. MBA, business analyst. I'm not trying to blow my horn or nothing, but listen up. Because this is where it gets really, really interesting and really revealing about what interests are being served. OLJ operates on subscription model for employers. We pay a monthly fee, and depending on your tier, you get access to contact a certain number of workers. The workers themselves don't pay shit to be on the platform. Sounds fair, right? The employer pays, the worker gets exposure, but think about what that actually means in practice. The, the paying customer is the employer. The product being sold is access to Filipino workers. The entire platform is designed to serve the person paying the subscription, not the person doing the work. I'm going to say that again. The entire platform is designed to serve the person paying the subscription, not the person doing the work. That's not a marketplace of equals. That's a catalog. You're a catalog. And look at the pricing tiers. Okay. The more you pay, the more workers you can contact. The more you pay, the more premium features you get, like being able to see who's actively looking, who's been recently active, who's ready to hire. All of these features are designed to give the employer maximum choice and minimum friction. But where are the equivalent features for workers? Where's the tool that lets a VA see which employers have a history of ghosting? Where's the rating system that holds clients accountable? It doesn't fucking exist because the platform wasn't built for you. It was not built for workers. It was built for the people paying the subscription and the workers, the Filipino professionals whose labor makes the entire thing valuable are the inventory. They're what's being browsed, filtered, sorted, and selected. That's the fundamental power imbalance that nobody talks about. And it's baked into the very architecture of how this platform works. Now, let's talk about pricing, because this is where the damage really shows up in people's lives. On OLJ, workers set their own rates. Again, sounds fair on the surface, but here's the reality. When you put hundreds of thousands of workers on a platform where the primary selling point to employers is hire Filipino workers for a fraction of what you'd pay locally, what do you think happens to the rates? They race to the bottom. Workers undercut each other because they're competing for attention in a system that rewards being cheap. A new worker signs up, sees that experienced VAs are asking for $5 or $6 an hour and thinks, I'll put $4 to be competitive. Then someone else puts 350, then three, and then suddenly the market expectation, the going rate has been dragged down by a system that incentivizes low pricing, aka a race to the bottom, a fucking bargain bucket, a swap meet. The platform doesn't set minimum rates. There is no floor. There's no professional standard that says a qualified virtual assistant with these skills should not be paid less than this amount, because setting a floor would make the platform less attractive to the budget-conscious employers who are the paying customers. And here's what makes it worse. The platform actively markets to employers using language like hire full-time worker for the cost of a part-time local employee. That's on the website. The entire value proposition is built on the wage gap. It's built on the idea that Filipino labor is a bargain. And while there's nothing wrong with competitive pricing, there's everything wrong with a system that has no mechanism to prevent exploitation. No minimum standards, no rate guidance, no protection against the inevitable race to the bottom that happens when workers are competing against each other in an unregulated fucking marketplace. Now, let me address the direct hiring model because this is another piece of the puzzle that people don't think critically about. OnlineJobs.ph positions itself as different from Upwork or Fiverr, okay? Because it facilitates direct hiring. No middleman taking a percentage of every payment, no platform fee on transactions, pays the worker directly. And again, on the surface, this sounds like it benefits the worker, no commission being taken from your earnings. But here's the flip side, okay? When there's no platform involvement in the payment, there's also no platform involvement in the protection. On Upwork, if a client doesn't pay, you can file a dispute. The platform holds funds in escrow. There are mechanisms, imperfect ones, but mechanisms nonetheless, to protect the worker, But on onlinejobs.ph, once you're hired and you move off platform, you're on your own. If the client stops paying, that's between you and them. Good luck. The direct hiring model also means there's no ongoing relationship between the platform and the employment, no monitoring of working conditions, no enforcement of agreements, no data on how long employment relationships last or why they end. The platform collects its subscription fee and washes its hands of everything that happens after the connection is made. So let's be honest about what OLJ actually is. It's a lead generation tool for employers. It's not an employment platform. It's not a workforce development system. It's not a professional body. It's a subscription service that gives foreign employers access to a database of Filipino workers and the rules of engagement, how you're found, how you're priced, how easy you are to hire and fire were designed entirely for the convenience of the client, not the protection of the worker. No Philippine regulator wrote those rules. No Filipino-led body approved them. They just became normal because there was nothing else. Now, here's the part that most people miss. And this is where the real damage happened, not just to freelancers, but to the entire professional VA and BPO sector. The chaos we talked about earlier, the lack of standards, the race to the bottom on pricing, the disposable nature of work relationships, that all started in what we call the freelance world. Casual gigs, side projects, short-term tasks, and for a while, it stayed there. People accepted that freelancing was inherently unstable because, well, that's what freelancing is, right? But then something happened. The chaos started to contaminate the real virtual assistant sector. Remember, I said this months ago. The chaos started to contaminate the real virtual assistant sector. You guys have said, I've said it. The freelance industry is actually what's compromising the real virtual assistant sector. The one that's supposed to live under BPO standards. The one where workers are supposed to have written contracts, KPIs, service level agreements, a real employer of record, the professional tier of remote work. Because here's what happened. Clients got used to the platform way of doing things. Fast, cheap subscription access, no long-term responsibility. They got used to browsing a catalog of workers, picking someone, using them for a few months, and then moving on when they found someone cheaper or when their needs changed. No severance, no notice period, no professional courtesy. And then those same clients with those same habits and expectations started hiring for what should be legitimate structured VA roles, full-time positions, roles that in a proper BPO environment would come with training, career development, performance reviews, and job security. But because the clients had been trained by platforms to think of Filipino workers as disposable resources, they brought those freelance world habits into the professional space. And that's when things really started to break down. So, what does this contamination actually look like in practice? I'll paint the picture for you. Suddenly, full-time VAs, people working 40 hours a week for a single employer, have no long-term security. They can be let go at any time with no notice, no severance, no explanation, because the client thinks of them in the same way they think of a freelancer on a gig platform. As a subscription, they can cancel anytime, no serious training, none whatsoever. So why would a client invest in training someone they might replace next month? In a proper BPO, training is an investment because the company expects to retain that worker. But in this contaminated space, training is seen as a waste because the relationship is assumed to be temporary. No clear path whatsoever. So in a real BPO, you start as an agent, you move to senior agent, team lead, supervisor, manager. There's progression. There's something to work toward. But when you're hired through a platform as an individual contractor with no structure around you, where do you go? What's your next step? There is none. And pay that drifts lower and lower because there are thousands more on that site. That's the phrase that fucking kills me. Clients know because the platform showed them. There's an endless supply of workers willing to do the same job for less. So why would they raise your rate? Why would they ever invest in you long term? That's what I mean when I say the freelance chaos compromised the legitimate VA and BPO sector. I'm going to say that one more time. That's what I mean when I say the freelance chaos compromised the legitimate VA and BPO sector. The worst habits of freelancing, the disposability, the lack of investment, the race to the fucking bottom were imported into a space that was supposed to have rules. And Filipino workers are the ones paying the price for that contamination every single day. So let's ask the real question, the one that nobody seems to be asking, but everyone should be. Who actually owns the system that defines our online workforce? Think about that. Who owns it? Is it a Filipino governing body? Is it a Philippine standard that employers must follow? Is it a set of rules written by Filipino professionals for Filipino professionals with Filipino interests at the center? Or is it a set of rules written by a foreign platform, backed by a monthly subscription, with no doctrine and no accountability to the people doing the work? Right now, and I need you to really hear this, platforms and the market sit at the bottom of the totem pole. Foreign founders, foreign investors, foreign clients, they define the terms. They set the expectations. They decide what Filipino labor is worth. And Filipinos, the workers whose labor built this entire industry, whose talent and dedication made virtual outsourcing a multi-billion dollar sector, multi-billion, do not sit at the top. You do not sit at the top. Y'all sit at the bottom. You're the product, not the owner. Find something wrong with that? And I know some people will push back on this. They'll say, but the platform gives us access to clients we'd never find on our own. That's true. That's 100% true. But access is not ownership. You understand? Access is not ownership. Being listed in someone else's catalog is not the same as running your own shit, running your own business. All right. Having a profile on someone else's platform is not the same as having a seat at the table where the rules are written. We need to stop confusing access with power. We need to stop being grateful for being allowed to participate in a system that was built on our labor but controlled by someone else. The question isn't whether OLJ helped people find work. Of course it did, red herrings. Of course it did, red herrings. Don't know what a red herring is, look it up. The question is this the best we can do? Is this the system we want defining Filipino professional identity for the next decade? Ask yourself that. So here's the truth that I need every Filipino, every Pinoy, Pinay, kababayan, all right, watching this to internalize. Filipinos should be the system. No one said you couldn't be. Not just workers with someone else's system, the system itself. I'm going to say it again. Filipinos should be the system, not just workers with someone else's fucking system, the system itself. Filipinos should own the doctrine, the professional standards that define what a qualified VA looks like, what training they need, what certifications matter. Filipinos should own the contracts. the legal frameworks that protect workers and set clear expectation for employers. Filipinos should own the enforcement, the mechanisms that hold both sides accountable when agreements are broken. And Filipinos should own the professional standard, the reputation, the brand, the identity of what it means to be a Filipino virtual professional. But to do that, we have to stop believing that free is our friend. We have to stop believing free is our friend. And I know this is going to be controversial, but hear me out. Free signups, free access, free to be ghosted, free to be underpaid, free to be listed in a catalog next to thousands of other workers, all competing to be the cheapest fucking option. That kind of free is not freedom. It's a trap. It's a system designed to keep the barrier to entry so low that the market is permanently flooded, permanently competitive, and permanently cheap. Real structure costs something. You have to pay to play and then earn your way up through competence, integrity, and contribution. That's how you build a system with credibility. That's how you build something that employers respect, not because it's cheap, but because it's professional. Not because there are thousands of options, but because every option has to be vetted, trained, and held to a standard. You don't build credibility with free choices. You build it with earned authority. And that's what's been missing from this entire industry. So now let's talk about what comes next. Because I'm not here just to diagnose the fucking problem. I'm here to show you the solution. And the solution has a name, Kasama Connect. For all you English speaking Americans, it's the same thing. Connect, connect. All right? Because I had a certain individual who owns Cebu VA who's in the Philippines, married to a Cebuana, American, sadly also a veteran, say, oh, that first name of your company sounds weird. What does that even mean? I was like, are you fucking serious, bro? You live in the Philippines? You don't know what Kasama means? Maybe all he knows is the sign. Anyway, Kasama Connect is what happens when you take everything we've just discussed, the chaos, the lack of structure, the foreign ownership of Filipino labor systems, and you say, enough. We're building something different. This is a Filipino-led built on doctrine, not just the marketplace. There was a lot of intelligence making this, a lot of smart people involved making this. Okay. It's not just another job board. It's a system with rules, standards, accountability, and most importantly, Filipino ownership at every motherfucking level. Now, let me explain what this means in practice, okay? Kasama Connect doesn't just connect workers with clients and walk away. It provides the structure that's been missing from this entire industry. Written contracts that protect both sides, clear service level agreements, professional standards that workers must meet and maintain, training pathways that develop real skills, and accountability mechanisms that hold everyone, workers and clients, to their commitments. This isn't about anti-platform or anti-technology. It's about who controls the platform. It's about who writes the rules. It's about whose interests are centered in the design. When a foreign founder builds a platform, they optimize for their paying customer, the foreign employer. When Filipinos build the system, they can optimize for what actually matters: sustainable careers, fair compensation, professional development, and long-term stability for Filipino workers. That's the fundamental difference. Not just a different app or a different website, a different philosophy, a different answer to the question of who sits at the top of the system. And for the first time, the answer is Filipinos do. Now, let me get more specific about how KC actually works, because I know people want to understand the practical reality, not just the philosophy. First, there's a vetting process. Not everyone gets in. Not everyone gets in. Okay? I'm just going to tell you that. And that's by design. Remember what I said about free being a trap. When anyone can sign up for free and list themselves as a VA, a rep, you get a flooded market with no quality control. Kasama Connect requires workers to demonstrate competence. You have to show that you have real skills, real experience, a real commitment to professional standards. That's not gatekeeping, okay? That's quality assurance. Second, there's doctrine, actual written standards for how work relationships function. What's expected of workers? What's expected of clients? How disputes are resolved? What happens when someone violates the agreement? This isn't made up as you go along. It's established up front, and everyone who participates agrees to operate within it. Third, there's a career pathway. You don't just get hired and stay at the same level forever. There's progression, there's development, there's a reason to invest in yourself because the system recognizes and rewards growth. You start at one level, you develop your skills, you take on more responsibility, and you move up. Just like in a real BPO, just like in a professional environment, just like in the military. And fourth, and this is critical and crucial, there's enforcement. When a client violates the terms, there are consequences. When a worker doesn't meet standards, there's accountability. The system has teeth. It's not just a set of suggestions that everyone ignores. It's a framework with real authority behind it. And that authority is motherfucking Filipino. That's what makes this different from anything that came before. Now, I want to address something that I know is on people's minds. Why should I trust this? Why is this different from every other platform that promised to help Filipino workers? That is a fair question. And here's my answer. Look at who's building it and look at what they're building. Look at who's building it and look at what they're building. I bet you've never thought of that with any other platform. Most platforms in this space were built by foreigners. Now, I'm probably all thinking, well, I'm a foreigner. No, I'm not. I'm Filipino. I'm just not like you. Built by foreigners who saw Filipino labor as a business opportunity. They built tools to sell access to Filipino workers. The workers were the product. The foreign employers were the customers. And the platform made money by sitting in between. Kasama Connect flips that entirely on purpose. Remember, programming is a human choice. I'm choosing to make the program this way. The system is built by and for Filipinos. The doctrine, the rules, the standards, the professional framework is written from the perspective of what do Filipino workers need to build sustainable, dignified careers, not what do foreign employers want to hear so they'll pay a subscription. And here's the other thing, Kasama Connect isn't just an app, it's a movement. It's a movement towards systematic and structural control. It's about building the institutional backbone that this industry has always lacked. Think about it. Every mature industry has professional bodies, standards, organizations, certification authorities. The Filipino virtual workforce has none of that shit. Until now. This is about giving Filipino professionals the same structural support that workers in other industries take for granted. The same protections, the same standards, the same ability to say, this is what professional work looks like. And if you want access to our talent, you play by the motherfucking rules. That's not arrogance. That's professionalism. That's what every other workforce in the world has. And it's what Filipino virtual workers deserve, but never had. Because no one built it for them. So now we're building it ourselves. So let me paint the picture of what this looks like when it's fully realized, because I want you to see the vision, not just the current state, okay? Imagine a world where a foreign client wants to hire a Filipino virtual assistant, a rep. Instead of going to a platform where they can browse thousands of profiles and pick the cheapest option, they come to a system where every worker has been vetted, trained, and certified to a professional standard, where the rates aren't a race to the bottom, but reflect the actual value of the work being done, where there's a contract that protects both sides, where there's an authority that can appeal to something if something goes wrong. And that same authority protects the worker too. Imagine being a Filipino rep in that system. You're not competing against thousands of other workers on the price. You're competing on quality, on professionalism, on your track record with a system that actually tracks and rewards excellence. You have a job security because the system incentivizes long-term relationships. You have a career path because the system recognizes growth. You have dignity because you're not inventory in someone's catalog. You're a professional operating with a Filipino-owned professional framework. That's what Kasama Connect is building toward. Not just a better app, not just a different platform, a complete reimagining of how Filipino virtual work is structured. governed, and valued. We were late once. We were late once. Actually, y'all were late once. We let someone else build the version of the system. We let a foreign fucking founder define how Filipino workers would be presented in the world. We don't have to be late again, ladies and gentlemen. We do not have to be late again. We can build the doctrine, we can build the structure, and we can finally become the system we've been working inside this whole time. That is the promise of Kasama Connect. So that's what this episode was all about. That's what I all needed you to hear. I'm not asking you to pick me over somebody else. I don't need you to fucking like me. I don't give a damn about that. I'm not asking you to abandon whatever platform you're currently using tomorrow. I'm asking you to pick the right side. The side that says Filipinos at the top of the system, Filipinos writing the rules, Filipinos enforcing a standard that actually protects Filipino workers. I'm asking you to think critically about the systems you operate with. I'm sure that's pretty hard because there's a lot of people that don't know how to think that way. But to ask yourself, who benefits from the way things are set up right now? Who wrote the rules? Whose interests are being served? And is this really the best we can do? Because here's what I know from sitting on the client side, from being in America, from seeing how this market operates behind closed doors. Filipino workers are some of the most talented, dedicated, and professional people in the entire global workforce. That's not flattery. That's a fact. The entire virtual outsourcing industry was built on Filipino talent, but the systems that govern this industry, they weren't built by Filipinos. They were built for Filipinos, and they don't serve Filipino interests. That has to fucking change, and it starts with conversations like this one. It starts with awareness. It starts with Filipino workers understanding that they deserve better than being inventory in someone else's fucking system. If this resonated with you, I want you to continue this conversation. Share this with other Filipino professionals. Talk about it in your communities. And when you're ready to be part of the damn solution, when you're ready to operate within a system that was built for you by people who look like you, Kasama Connect is here. Let's build the doctrine. Let's build the structure. And let's finally own the damn system. Thank you for fucking watching. Mic drop.